Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining the webinar. We're going to go ahead and get started. So the topic tonight is powerful marketing strategies to generate new patients in this COVID era. And obviously, times are a bit different now than they were last year. And so what we want to do in this webinar is, focus on what's changed and specifically what we can do in response to that. What should we do to alter or modify our marketing programs? And we'll talk through a bunch of different details in terms of what makes an effective marketing program and what we should be thinking about, right now in terms of what should be changed and strategies we can do to adapt to the current market. So the agenda tonight will give a brief background about myself and WEO Media. We'll talk specifically, I'll give you some data around what's really changed with consumer behavior. There's a survey that was done recently that I've got some screenshots from that I think is pretty interesting and talks about what the consumer mindset is now in this COVID-19 environment. And then once we understand that, a lot of the webinar after that's going to take advantage of that information and say, okay, here's what we can do with our marketing in our dental practice or specialty practice to take advantage of that and be more effective. We'll have some case studies as we go through the program, and then at the end, depending on time, we may have time for Q&A. At the worst case, what I'll do is have my contact information up at the last slide, and that will allow people to email me or text me with their questions if we don't have time tonight. So a few slides, just a little bit of background about myself and WEO Media. So I'm one of the co-founders at WEO Media. We are a dental marketing agency, national dental marketing agency. We work with over 700 practices currently, and we're based in Portland, Oregon. So myself, I've been fortunate that Dentistry Today has named me one of their top CE leaders and consultants this year and last year, so I appreciate that. And I've had a pretty varied experience in my career being an entrepreneur, working in high tech. And so our approach to marketing is really data-driven, process-driven. And so what we're going to teach tonight is really based on experience and our analysis of what works and what doesn't work. Briefly about WEO Media. So as I mentioned, we are based in Portland, Oregon. We were founded in 2009. Currently, we've got about 50 team members in the Portland area, mostly in the Portland area. And one of the things we really focus on is client retention rate. So our average retention rate is annually about 91% or above, and that's exceptionally high for a marketing company. The reason is we really focus on service, value, return on investment, and we've really done a good job over the years at those things. And we've also, for quite a few years, we've been a Google certified partner agency. So we're pretty darn technical and good at what we do online. Now we've also been recognized by the ADA with the Seller and Best of Class Award. So we've won this 4 years in a row for being the top website and online marketing company in the dental industry. So we're very honored again to have won that 4 years running. Last thing here, it's important to understand as a full service agency, what I'm going to teach tonight is based on our experience. It's based on data and case studies. And so I'm not teaching the stuff this evening as kind of like in theory, here's what we think works. It's really based on here's what we know to be true based on working with hundreds of practices and seeing the results firsthand. So we're going to teach best practices. We'll show case studies. We'll talk about some areas, what to do and what to not do in some areas, and really paint a picture for how to develop an effective online marketing program. So let's get started with the marketing. Now, kind of pre-coronavirus, the ideal marketing program would look like this, and this is still I think very relevant for today. The things that we're going to tweak will be a little bit more subtle than this, but there are generally three kind of major areas in a marketing program, right? You've got your internal marketing with patient referrals, online marketing, which would be website, social media, reviews, videos, those types of things. And then direct consumer, which might be direct mail, TV, print ads, those kinds of things. So typically a practice would have some combination of these three things. Now for national averages, what we see to be very effective in terms of how much should you spend and what can you expect in terms of return on investment and so forth. What we've seen across the country is practices that spend between 3 to 5% of revenue on marketing tend to do very well with growth. So if your practice does $1 million a year in collections, then you should probably be spending $30,000 to $50,000 a year on marketing if you're trying to grow. And the practices that we see doing that grow quite nicely. In terms of now, if you spend the money, what should you expect in terms of acquisition costs and return on investment? So for general dentistry, we typically see across the country between $100 and $150 per patient is what we can do in terms of acquisition costs. And that's a very good return on investment. So an average patient's worth about $800 to $1,000 in the first year. And so if you can acquire a patient for 100 or 150, obviously that's a really good return on investment. And of course, if you can keep that patient beyond the first year, the return on investment's even better. So if you're a specialty practice, the acquisition cost potentially can be higher. It just depends on what type of patient and procedure you're going after. But we'll give some examples of this a little bit later with some case studies. So that's kind of in the pre-coronavirus here, but what about now? What's changed? Well, specifically, this is a survey that was done recently on consumer behavior as it's been transformed by this now coronavirus environment that we're all living in. So I'm going to go through a few slides here and just show you some interesting stats. So about 84% of consumers have chosen a business because of pandemic-friendly services. So altering your business practices to be more tailored towards this current environment, that's a huge factor for people, not surprisingly, right? 53% are avoiding businesses that don't offer pandemic-friendly services. So what that means is if you've not really changed anything, or at least you've not communicated that you're doing anything differently or more safe, a lot of people are going to, in fact, avoid those types of businesses. 85.5% expect local businesses to offer more convenient communication and services now than they did prior. So they're really expecting practices to be able to communicate proactively, tell us how you're going to keep us safe, those types of things. It needs to be more proactive than reactive now than in the past, and that's certainly the case. This is an interesting slide too. So there's a lot of stuff here that I think is very telling for dentistry. So the big orange box here says 89% say that they are likely to return to a business they first visited because of pandemic-friendly services, even after the restrictions are lifted. So what that means for a practice, and this is something that I see some practices making the mistake, is assuming that simply because I have existing patients, they're going to come back to me once I reopen, or now that I'm reopened, they're going to come back. And that's not necessarily the case, because if you're not proactively communicating with them and telling them that, hey, look, we would like to, let you know about what we're doing to keep you safe. If you're not proactively telling them that, that's going to be a real challenge. And so they may not come back to you. In fact, what happens a lot of times is they go online and do a Google search, and they'll look for practices that specifically have information about what's keeping people safe and what they've done in their practice to be safe. And so a lot of patients are migrating to those practices who are communicating that online. And some doctors may be thinking, oh, my patients just haven't come back yet, when in reality, they've come back, they've just gone somewhere else, who's advertising and communicating, hey, here's what we're doing to keep you safe. That's a really important thing. 9 out of 10 people, that's a big deal. Another one here, texting is now the preferred communication channel for all age groups. And what that means is, it's not that, because I'll talk to doctors and they say, oh, I have an older patient base, they don't really communicate via text message, and so they don't maybe use some of those services that are tailored that way, and that's really a mistake. There's one of the stats here, 50% of people over 60 years old have received or exchanged texts with a local business in the last month. So that's a pretty telling statistic, that more and more people are using text messaging to communicate. And so as you think through your practice strategy, you should use text messaging for appointment confirmations, for asking for feedback, online reviews, that type of thing, right? And then 65.5% say texting makes working with the local business more convenient. And that's again, not surprising. Now here's the last thing here. This is from the US Chamber of Commerce. And what they're saying is, businesses that will survive and thrive are the ones who can be flexible and adaptable to consumers' new and evolving needs, which is like we've been talking about here. You'll need to plan carefully and understand not only what you need to change about your business, but what new growth opportunities may exist for you in this post-pandemic world. And so what they're trying to say here is, we need to be aware that the world has changed, not permanently, I don't think, but certainly for a while. And so we need to evolve our business practices and strategies and approaches to deal with that. And I think that's exactly right. So if that's the case of all businesses, specifically for dental, what does that mean for us in our industry? So I want to really kind of start digging into that a little bit. The first thing I want to talk about is kind of hot buttons. So when you think about a hot button is essentially a selection criteria. So if you're looking for, a new television, you're probably going to be looking at, the size of the screen, the resolution, the price, the warranty, those types of things, right? Hot buttons for a dentist would be things like, are they in network, with my insurance? Location, is it close to me or far away? Convenient, right? Do they offer the services that I need? Is it experienced people? They have experience in the services I need or not, and so forth. And these are historically important decision-making criteria or hot buttons in the dental space, and they still matter, right? They still are important. But the thing about it is, there are new hot buttons now, and in particular, the big one now is safety, right? So the thing that, last year, I would say 2019, safety was not very high on the selection criteria because it was just assumed, yeah, going to the dentist or the periodontist, the oral surgeons, they're not worried about safety. They were maybe had other concerns, but safety wasn't one of them. And now safety is the most important factor that people are looking for when they pick a doctor. So we have to adapt to that. What does that mean? Well, if safety is so important, I want to give you a set of ideas here for what you can do for your practice to really document and communicate to your patients and potential patients what you're doing to keep them safe, why they should come to your practice. So the first item here, what we want to do is let's create a list of all the things you do for your practice to maintain a safe environment for the patients, right? So what do you do for sterilization? Like, oh, here's our autoclave, or maybe you have some sort of air filtration or UV sterilization type of equipment that you purchased to kill viruses in the air. What do you use for PPE? What are your practices and protocols and that kind of thing? Safety practices and so forth. So just kind of document everything you can think of. Just make a list. And once you've got that list, then we're going to do some things with that information. The first thing is you want to create a safety video. So you've got your list. Consider, just doing like a selfie video or hiring a local videographer. But what you want to do is kind of take a patient through your practice, walk through the front door. Here's our waiting room. Here's what we've done. We've spaced chairs apart, 6 feet, or we're not even having patients wait in the waiting room. We're having people stay in the cars. We're checking temperatures before they come in, or we're actually testing them, or whatever it is you're doing, right? And then you walk through the waiting room, and then you're walking by. Here's our cabinet where we keep our PPE, and you notice we've spaced our operatories, or we've got plexiglass between the operatories, or whatever you want to point out. We've got barriers between operatories, that kind of thing. And just kind of point out all the things that you can think of with safety in mind, right? Put that all into the video. Once you've got the video, we want to leverage that information and publish the video on your website, your social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, what have you. Newsletter. Now, the old school email newsletter is actually still alive and kicking. It still is pretty effective. We send out newsletters on behalf of a lot of our clients, and the open rate is typically 25, 30, sometimes even 35% open rates on these, although typically 25, 30 is more normal. That's a lot of people, and the reason that many people open it is because it's not spam email. It's coming from their doctor. They know you. And so the newsletter is a really effective way to communicate what are you doing to keep them safe. Write it out in text, and then have that video or have a link to that video, right? So again, communicating to your existing patients so they don't go somewhere else. Putting the video on your website so potential new patients will get the same messaging. Another thing you can do is, again, create like a little one-page PDF flyer that you can email to patients proactively. Just blast it out to everybody, or send it to them, when they make their appointment, send it to them at that time. Maybe you, if you're still physically handing out paperwork in the office, include that with their paperwork when they come in. Here's our safety policies or procedures or whatever. But again, over communicate what you're doing for safety, because it's now the #1 hot button that people are looking for to pick a doctor. So you need to just put it everywhere. Website, everything you can do digitally, and even within the office as well. So that's safety, and we'll talk more about safety a little bit later. Now, when we're communicating, we're trying to build an effective marketing program. What we always talk about at WEO Media are the 6 pillars of online marketing. And in my book, I talk a lot about this. I elaborate on all 6 of these pillars in a lot of detail. Then I'm just going to go through each of these pillars in a little bit of detail to make sure that we all have understanding of best practices, and it give you some real solid tips and strategies that you can do to improve these. Now, the reason that all 6 pillars are so important is when a patient is looking for a doctor, whether they were referred to a specialist or whether they're just looking for a general dentist for the first time, whatever the case may be, they are typically going to look at between 2 and 5 pieces of information to make a decision, to help them make a decision, where should I go? So they might look at your website and your Facebook page, check out some Google reviews, maybe watch a video on YouTube or whatever, but they're typically going to look at a few pieces of information before they make a decision. So it's extremely important if you're doing marketing to have a robust, kind of a comprehensive program where you're checking all 6 of these boxes so that you have solid programs in place. If you do, and you do them properly, you can produce extremely good results with online marketing. And I'll show you some case studies as we go through the presentation here and the webinar, and kind of point out some good things to do and some kind of warning signs, hey, don't do this. So we'll go through each of these 6 pillars here in a little bit of detail. The first pillar is the website. Now the website's kind of that foundational bedrock, right? So the website should definitely have a modern design. If you have an older website, hasn't been updated in a while, that's the cover of the book, right? Patients will judge the book by its cover, and your website is the cover of the book. So if your website hasn't been updated recently, if it's an older design, I would highly encourage you to get a more modern design, because patients are going to look at that and probably move on and go to the next doctor's website. Also, the website should be secure. That's what HTTPS means. You want to have a secure website. The website should definitely be mobile responsive. I'll talk about that more in just a minute. In the design and content part of the website, you need to have prominent calls to action. What's the primary call to action we want people to take when they come to our website? What should they do? Well, we want them to call us or request an appointment. So the phone number and the appointment request button should be easy to find, top of the screen, prominent on every page on the website. Educational content is important. You should have that safety web page as well. So these are some tips. You want to make sure that all of these things you're checking all of these boxes for your website. Now, when we talk about the mobile optimization piece, what you want to do, if you're not sure, is go onto Google and type in at the top words here of the screen, Google mobile friendly test. So go to Google, type in Google mobile friendly test. When you do that, you'll see this kind of gray box pop up in the search results. So what you want to do is right here in that white box, it'll say enter a URL to test. You just type in your website, www.smithdentistry.com, or whatever your website is. And then when you type that in and hit test URL, you'll see one of 2 things. Either you're going to see this, which is good news, green, page is mobile friendly, we like that. So that means you're good to go. Your Google has analyzed a bunch of things about your website and determined, yes, it's mobile friendly. But that's important because if it's not mobile friendly, Google will penalize it in search rankings. It will hurt your ranking performance, so your traffic will go down, your new patient opportunities will go down, and people will tend to leave the site quickly because it's not friendly on their mobile device. If you see this when you get the test results, this is bad. If it's red and it says page is not mobile friendly, you definitely should get a hold of your website company and find out what the problem is. Now, if your website is more than 2 years old, then you probably just need a new website. Technology changes pretty rapidly online, and so it's not the website company's fault if your website is not mobile friendly if it's an old website. That just means you just simply need to upgrade your technology and build a new website. Websites have a shelf life of about 2 to 3 years. So if you've got a website that's much older than 2 to 3 years, you should not expect great results with SEO or mobile friendly tests. So if your website's newer than that and it's not mobile friendly, then probably there's something your website company can fix. So another thing related to websites is live chat and even teledentistry. So we are big proponents of live chat at WEO Media. We feel this is a great way to convert website traffic into patients. And so the phone call is going to be the primary thing that people are going to do. But what happens when you don't answer the phone, or what happens when people come to your website after hours? And in fact, a lot of people do come after hours. And so it's important to make sure that you can convert traffic, because traffic comes to your website 24/7, and you want to make sure that you have the ability to convert that. So we have a chat team that we partner with, and they have a whole huge staff 24/7. They reply to these chats, and they'll, there's an onboarding process where they learn about your practice, your office hours, the insurances you take, the services you provide, all that kind of stuff. So they can answer some basic questions, but their goal is to kind of field the incoming inquiry, send the practice the information, and try to get that into a scheduled appointment. They do have the ability, if the practice wants them to actually log in and schedule directly into the practice management software. We do have an integration piece for that. So that's all a really great way to get more value from your website. In addition to that, teledentistry has become quite popular, obviously, in this COVID era. This is something you may want to consider. You may not need to now if you're open and you're super busy. Maybe it's not such a big deal. But if you happen to close partially in the future, again, something to consider, because teledentistry is a nice way to kind of do some triage, right? You can see what the patient's situation is. Do they need to come in for an emergency appointment, or do they need to go to the emergency room at the hospital, depending on what the situation is? Or if it's not serious, maybe you could just schedule them, talk to them on the teledentistry, and then schedule them for next week or what have you. So teledentistry is another thing to consider, just another tool in your toolkit. If you have a chat on your website, it typically is going to look like this, right? Most chat windows are programmed to pop up in the bottom right corner, and so that's kind of typically what that would look like. So that's the first pillar. Now the second and third pillars are SEO and PPC. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization, and this is a process to get the website to rank well in the organic search rankings. PPC stands for Pay Per Click. These are paid advertisements, so paid ads. You're paying Google to show up on page one. And so what this looks like, at the very top of the screen here, I've circled the ads. Now this is a search result for dentist, Portland, Oregon. Portland, Oregon is the area where I live. So if I do that search, this is what I would see. Now at the very top, outlined in blue, those are ads. Those are paid ads up there, right there. And below that, outlined in green, we've got the organic results. So you'll see there's a map with a few listings there. And then below the map, there's typically 10 organic listings below that. And so those two areas are determined by SEO activities, which are considered the organic results. About 94% of all clicks come from the organic results, and about 6% of the clicks are in the paid. Now they're both super important, but you really want to focus first and foremost on your SEO right here. And then after that, we can work on PPC. But both of them are very important, and we'll talk about both here right now. So let's start with SEO, the second pillar. How does this work, right? So the three major search engines, you got Google, which is about 65, 67% of all search volume in North America, about 2/3, right? Yahoo is about maybe 10%, and Bing is about 20%, something like that. So how these search engines work in terms of how do they determine how high or how low to rank your website in a Google search. So if somebody types, dental implants Los Angeles, well, how does Google determine where to show you? Well, there's actually over 200 variables that Google looks at to determine how to rank your website. And it does this about once every 30 days. So for the average website, my website at weomedia.com, your website, your practice website, we're average businesses. So we get reviewed about once every 30 days. We're not Amazon or eBay. Those guys get a separate set of rules. But for the average Joe website like us, every 30 days, the search engines will analyze your website to look at your code, your content, your videos, all this stuff, your reviews and everything. And based on all that information, they'll judge you and they'll rank you. And then they do it 30 days later. Did they make any improvements? If yes, great, you might rise in the rankings. If not, you might drop in the rankings. You're being judged every 30 days, and so you literally can't stop SEO or your rankings will drop. And I'm going to show you one of the case studies that in fact demonstrates exactly that point. One thing that's really interesting about SEO is it's kind of a long game. I like to use a marathon analogy. I'm a distance runner. I enjoy running marathons, and so I like to talk about this analogy. So let's imagine all of us on the webinar right now, we are all running a marathon together, okay? And we're all running about the same pace. We're about mile 20, 22. We're definitely starting to get tired. Boy, when is this thing going to be over, And we're chugging along, and there's a whole pack of people chugging along with us. And all of a sudden, everyone around us starts sitting down or walking. And we continue to chug along, and we really quickly separate and put some distance between us and them. That's what's happening with SEO right now. SEO takes time. You get judged once a month, and so it's not like instantaneous, but it's the slow and steady wins the race. And so a lot of people right now are taking their foot off the gas and stopping or pausing their SEO activities, and that's a big mistake. And again, I'm going to show you why that's a mistake in a case study coming up here in a minute. But because of this opportunity right now, it's a good opportunity to put your foot on the gas and really put some separation between you and the practices around you who maybe aren't doing SEO. And right now in particular, you really want to be on page one of Google when patients are looking for doctors implementing safety procedures and things like that. The vast majority of clicks and new patient opportunities will come to the doctors who are on page one. So this is something that I'm telling our clients and telling our staff and everybody, is there probably will never be a better time to make rapid gains in Google rankings than in the next few months. And the reason for that is because, like I just said, a lot of people are kind of pausing or ramping down or canceling their SEO activities And it's a huge mistake because medium term and long term, that's what's going to be the driver for really producing a lot of new patient flow. Now, one thing I need to talk about too, when I'm talking about doing SEO, I'm talking about what I call real SEO. There's an unfortunate truth in the dental industry that I'll share with you. So many marketing companies have figured out that we can charge a dental practice about $300 a month, and it's a low enough threshold that we don't get really heavily scrutinized, and so we can charge doctors that amount, and it doesn't really, we don't get scrutinized for really having to be held accountable for getting results or anything. It kind of flies under the radar. And so a lot of companies have priced their SEO at that level because they don't really do SEO. They just kind of sign you up and don't do anything. And I've seen this just dozens and dozens and dozens of times when I'll analyze websites and doctor says, oh, I'm paying for SEO. And then I'll go through the checklist. I'm like, you're not getting any SEO, and that's why your rankings are terrible. So for example, unique content is a huge part of SEO. If your website does not have unique content, meaning it's written uniquely and only for your website, it doesn't exist on anybody else's website. If it's not unique to your website, you're not getting SEO. That's a huge factor. Duplicate content, the same as other people, gets no reward on Google. It's really, really hard to rank well on Google without unique content. Code optimization is a huge thing. Meta code, schema code, there's tons and tons of code optimization things that we do. Code, HTML code, that is the language that your website is built upon. The code is what the search engines read. So human beings, we look at the website and we see graphics and colors and buttons and all that. That is not what the search engines see. The search engines see the code. It's like the search engines pop the hood and look at the engine. We're just looking at the outside of the car, the shiny paint. The search engines are going through the code, which is really like the engine, the back end. So there's directory updates, link building. There's just dozens and dozens of things you do as a part of a real SEO program. But what I want to show is a couple of case studies. This first one is an example of when you do SEO properly, real SEO properly, the results are really good. The second case study is more of a cautionary tale of what not to do. But here's the first one. Now, this is a general dentist located in the Seattle, Washington area. So Seattle is highly competitive online. This is the home to Microsoft. This is the home to Amazon and many other tech companies. This is a highly sophisticated tech-savvy market, so it's very competitive online. Now, with this client, when we took over their website, we built them and launched them a new website, one of our websites. And prior to us, they were getting 400 to 500 visitors a month to their website, which wasn't bad. But what you can see here in the traffic is within 9 months, we had quadrupled their traffic to 2,000 visitors a month. That is a huge improvement. And we did that by the stuff we just talked about. We wrote unique content, we optimized the code, we did videos and all this stuff, and the traffic really increased. Now, one thing that's important to understand about traffic is traffic alone is not that important of an indicator, because if you get the wrong kind of traffic, then the phone doesn't ring and you don't get new patient flow, so who cares what the traffic is? So really, phone calls are the most important metric. So we track phone calls, and here's the phone call data. So you can see the phone call track is really tracking just like the traffic is. So if the phone calls are going up along with the traffic, then okay, it's the right kind of traffic, which is the case in this situation. So again, the first month they were getting about 50 phone calls, and then after a while they're getting 150, 200 phone calls. So again, a 400 to quadrupling, 400% increase in calls. This is a tremendous result. One of the things we've learned over time is once we get somebody ranking on page 1, it's typically around 10% of the calls end up being new patients appointing. And so if I see 200 phone calls on a website that's ranking well, I would expect about 20 new patients came from the digital marketing efforts that got scheduled and came in. And in fact, in this particular office, that's what happened. And I'll show you the results in just a second. Another thing that we track that's very interesting is this thing called conversion rate, this rightmost column. So if you take the phone calls and you divide it into the traffic, that tells you what percentage of the people who came to your website actually called us. So it's kind of a good indication of, is your website kind of effectively converting leads or not. So the first 3 months, they were around 8 or 9%, which isn't bad, not great, but not terrible. So we made some tweaks, some improvements. And then you can see they're consistently kind of in the 12, 13% range, which is really, really good. And so this is an example of how you can get a tremendous result with your online marketing. If you can increase traffic, the right kind of traffic, through good SEO and all that, and you can improve your conversion rate, those two things are humming on both cylinders like that, it produces really good results. And so for this practice in Seattle, they were getting between 20 to 30 new patients a month. And that's the data that they provided us. So they told us this is what you're generating for us. And they were spending about $2,500 a month at that time. And so the acquisition cost was between $100 and $125 per patient, which is very good. Again, if you can acquire a patient for that range and they're worth $800 to $1,000 to you in the first year, as a general dentist anyways, that's really good. Now, if you're doing implants, the acquisition cost is probably going to be a bit higher, but of course the revenue is going to be a lot higher. So implant marketing is very similar. The numbers are a little higher, but it's a very effective approach nonetheless. So that's the first case study. Now, the second one is interesting. This one is kind of a bit of a cautionary tale. So this is a general dentist in the Portland, Oregon area. Same goal, I want to generate new patient flow. Now here is the same graph. Here are the phone calls per month. It's the same type of graph I just showed in the first case study. In that first case study, we started at about 50 and we grew it to about 200, 250 calls. Well, you can see it's pretty similar here. The guy started around 20 or 30 calls per month. And within a year, within 6 months, we're already over 150 calls and consistently averaging that for a while. So that's really, really great, like a huge increase in phone calls, a ton of new leads coming in. Then you notice around month 15 or so, they turned off SEO. Why would they do that? Well, that was our question, right? So we asked the doctors, hey doc, why would you want to cancel? We're generating tons of calls here for you. And he said, well, yeah, I am getting more new patients, but it's not really, the return on investment wasn't what I was hoping. So we turned off his SEO. And we're like, boy, that just doesn't seem right. So we looked at his phone call data, and it's about 35 to 40% of his phone calls were going to voicemail. And so if you spend, thousands of dollars or $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month, whatever you're spending on marketing to generate leads and get the phone to ring, but then you don't answer the phone, that's a huge problem, right? So this guy had the potential to have an amazing return on investment, but he just wasn't answering the phone. And so rather than address the issue with his front office, he just blamed the marketing company and suffered the results. Within a few months, he's back down to 50 calls a month, and a few months later, he's back down to like 20 to 30 calls a month, as if the marketing never happened at all. The SEO never happened at all. And this is because Google's judging you every 30 days. So if you stop doing the things that you need to do to maintain those good rankings, this is what happens. Boom, you drop off a cliff, the rankings drop, the phone calls drop. So this is a cautionary tale. If you're getting lots of new phone calls, you really need to pay attention to, are you answering the phone, right? Tracking where those calls are being answered or calls that are being missed. You really need to track that information, review it ideally on a monthly basis. And so you want to keep SEO active. Don't blame the SEO if it's working. Figure out what is it in the chain, because marketing is really generate the lead, get the lead to call the office, and then convert that into an appointment. Those are kind of the different steps involved in marketing. And so if one step is broken, the whole thing breaks down. So your marketing company could be doing a great job. And in this case, we were doing a great job. But we got blamed and the guy canceled, and he made a really fundamentally bad decision for his business because he wasn't looking at the right data. He's thinking we weren't doing our job when in fact we were doing a great job, but he wasn't taking care of shop on his end. And so easier to pass the blame than to fix the issue in this case, but it's a mistake. So my cautionary tale, don't do this. Not a good idea. Okay, that's the second pillar. The third pillar are PPC, pay-per-click ads. Right now, the nice thing about pay-per-click ads is you can generate immediate clicks, which oftentimes generates immediate phone calls. So this is good. Now, if you're open right now and you're marketing for all your normal services or just new patients in general, that's great. If you are marketing, if you want to see emergency patients or implants or something like that, I've given like a few headline examples here of what ads can look like, the headlines of ads that can be effective, and then we're actually going to dissect an actual ad here in a minute. So things like, we're open, safety protocols implemented. Well, we talked about safety as such a huge message. So if you're going to do ads on Google, I would try to work in the safety word somewhere in your headline. Or call us now, we're open for emergency patients. Again, if that's something you want to market for. Get dental implants safely, right? Try to work in that safely piece, that safety piece. It's an important part of what people are looking at nowadays. So I want to take a little slide here and show you how to properly implement SEO and PPC together. So outlined here, we've got Southern California, and outlined in red, we've got Anaheim, California, okay? Now, let's pretend I'm a dentist and this is my practice right here, this red star, that's my practice. And I am based in Anaheim. I have a physical Anaheim address, okay? Then where am I pulling my patients from? So if we draw a radius around my practice, probably I'm pulling, patients from a 3 to 5 mile radius. Most of my patients are probably coming from this radius. And so that's kind of my target area for marketing, right? Well, how does SEO and PPC play into this? Well, I have a physical Anaheim address. And so how Google works with SEO rankings, with your organic rankings, is Google will tend to rank you for where you have a physical address. So in the Anaheim market, that little outline there, that's where I could potentially get found, right? So SEO is going to help me here in Anaheim. But what about everything else in the circle that's not Anaheim? Well, that's where PPC comes in. So when you properly develop a program, what you want to do is say, okay, draw a circle around my practice, around all the areas in that circle, where am I ranking good on Google? Cool, that's my SEO. Now, where could I be pulling patients from, but I'm not ranking good on Google? Those are the areas you can focus your PPC ads. And when you do this combination in tandem like this, it can work really, really effectively for drawing patients from a realistic geography. We're not going to want to market from too far away because the further away you go, obviously the odds go down that people are actually going to come that far. So start with fairly close proximity to your practice, and you can kind of build out from there. But this is the proper way to implement an SEO and PPC strategy together. Now, if you are on this webinar tonight, and many of you are probably placing dental implants, this is an ad from ClearChoice, a paid ad from ClearChoice. And so if you place dental implants, I don't have to explain to you who ClearChoice is. So what we're going to do is kind of dissect this ad, and I'm going to point out some things that they're doing well. So first, the headline of the ad, same day dental implants. Well, that's a hot button. Same day, that's a convenience factor. One price for the entire treatment. One price, that sounds easy, clear. I'm not going to get nickeled and dimed. That all sounds good. What else? No more discomfort. Well, that sounds appealing. What else? Eat freely again. That's a hot button for sure, right? If you're a dentist or you have bad teeth, this is a problem, right? What else? No hidden fees. That's always good. Free CT scan. That's nice. Can I afford this? Oh, financing options available. That's great too. ClearChoice knows the hot buttons for dental implant marketing, and here are a lot of the main ones right here in this ad. So if you are doing advertising for dental implants, I would encourage you, do a search for dental implants in your town or in a large city near you. See what the advertisers are doing. Look at the keywords they're using, especially if you see a ClearChoice or somebody who really knows what they're doing, and try to model some of your ads after that. Now, if you're using an agency like WEO Media, we already know all this stuff, and so we do all this stuff. But if you're going to try to do it yourself, these are the things you'd want to try to think about. I would encourage you probably not to try to do it yourself because there's a lot of technical things you can screw up with PPC ads. But at the very least, I wanted to point out, here's the hot buttons, and here's kind of how you would construct a well-made ad. Now, other things about ads, these are some additional tips to help you really run a good campaign if you want to do it yourself. Now, again, I don't recommend that, but if you are using an agency to do your ads, at least you'll have a better understanding and you can have a more informed conversation with them to hopefully come to a better outcome together collaboratively for your ad campaigns. So one thing about ad campaigns, this is a common mistake I see fairly often, this first bullet. Your ads should link to a dedicated landing page that's about that specific topic. So for example, on that ClearChoice ad, it was about dental implants. Or let's just say you're doing an ad on dental implants for your practice, okay? That ad, when people click on that ad, it should take them to a landing page specifically and only about dental implants. It should educate them, ideally have a video, have a contact form, have a website, phone number they can call. All that stuff should be on that landing page. That will convert a lot better than the mistake I make, and I see people make, is they'll have a link and it goes to the home page of their website. Well, the home page isn't about dental implants, so people see that and they leave, and the lead is lost. So it's really important to make sure that you got the link going to the right kind of page. Now, definitely we want to focus on hot buttons, right? So we talked about hot buttons a little earlier. Now for dental implants, convenience is certainly going to be something, right? Technology, these are common hot buttons. And now what about price? I put a question mark next to price. Convenience and technology are always hot buttons you want to talk about, but price is not necessarily so. It really depends on your practice and your strategy for your practice. Now, if you are trying to compete on price and you have lower pricing than some of your competitors in the area, then yeah, you probably could focus on price as a way to drive traffic and leads. If you're not competing on price, which is what I almost always recommend, is don't compete on price. I always recommend on competing on things like quality, convenience, clinical outcomes, experience, technology, right? Those types of things. That's what you want to really focus your ads around, and not so much price. Because when you start marketing and competing on price, it's just a race to the bottom, right? It's a race to lower and lower margins, lower and lower profitability. Nobody really wins there. I mean, maybe the patients win, I guess, but from a marketing perspective, it's not really what you want to accomplish. So price, I would say it depends on what you're trying to do. I generally recommend not. One other quick thing about PPC ads. There are going to be some key metrics that your agency can talk to you about. Probably the most important thing you're going to want to talk about is, well, one of the most important things will be cost per click. So this is how much are you getting charged every time somebody clicks on your ad. Now, the more well optimized your ad campaign is, then Google will charge you less and less money. So a good agency can typically decrease that cost per click quite a bit, and usually can more than offset. Like with our clients, we see this all the time, where the starting cost per click is within 2 to 3 months, we've optimized that program so much that the cost per click drops significantly, and usually at least more than covers our management fee. So effectively, it's like they're getting it for free, because compared to doing it themselves, plus they're saving the time and not having to try to figure it out themselves. So a good agency will more than pay for themselves in this area. Bounce rate is an important thing. That's really when you go to a website and you look at it like, not what I'm looking for, and you leave quickly, that's a bounce. The number of times it happens out of 100 visitors is your bounce rate. So if Google sees a high bounce rate from your ads, it tells Google your ad is bad or your landing page is bad, something's bad, and so they actually charge you more. And so this is the danger of running these campaigns yourself. If you don't know what you're doing, Google's going to charge you a lot more than what you should be paying. I'll give you a quick story about this. I was in Texas a few years ago doing a lecture at a study club, and I showed a case study with one of our clients, and this is in Austin. And so in Austin, we had a client who we were doing dental implant ads for, and we had his campaign optimized so well, we were getting $4.50 to about $5 a click. Really, really good for a market that competitive. Well, there was a doctor there who said, well, I'm using a guy and we're really good. And I said, okay, well, great. How's your cost per click? And he said, oh, it's about $18 a click. And I was like, wow. And I didn't want to make him feel bad, but that is just horrible. And I knew exactly what they were doing wrong when he described the campaign, but he was just so adamant that they knew what they were doing. And so he just flat out wouldn't believe me when I told him what we were doing. So I sent him a screenshot of the cost per click cost for my client. Of course, I blacked out my client's name, and he just couldn't believe it. And it's because you really have to know what you're doing technically to optimize these things to really get a really, really good cost per click. So cautionary tale, right? If you're going to do it yourself, I just wouldn't advise it. Just find a good Google partner agency and go with somebody like that. Ideally, somebody who knows dental like us. Other things that matter, conversions, phone calls. You obviously want to generate calls and appointment requests for sure. So these are some of the most important things with PPC. Now that fourth pillar is online reputation. And this is, again, we talked about this earlier, this is super important for any practice, whether you're a general dentist or a specialist, super important to make sure that you have solid online reputation. In dentistry, we talk about the big four: Google, Healthgrades, Yelp, and Facebook. Google is the most important no matter what market you're in. Yelp tends to be very important on the West Coast, and the further east you head, the less important it gets. It's still important. Healthgrades and Facebook also important. Now, on all four of these review sites, you want to have at least a 4.0 star average rating. The most important factor on your reviews and reputation management is the star rating. So 4.0 is the minimum. 4.5 and above is really where you want to be. If you're below a 4.0, that is a major problem for attracting potential leads online. So the first thing you got to do, if you're below a 4, the first thing you got to do, even more important than fixing your website, is you got to get that star rating up right away. Now, getting recent reviews is also important. If you've got reviews that are like 11, 12 months old and those are the most recent, that's not very compelling. Ideally, the last 3 to 6 months is what we want to see there, and that's what Google wants to see as well. And then quantity matters, getting lots of reviews. So if you've got 17 reviews and the guy down the street has 143 reviews, if your star ratings are anywhere near the same, the 143 reviews is going to win 9 times out of 10. So you're going to lose a lot of leads if you're not paying attention to this online review stuff. Now, sometimes I'll speak at these study clubs, and there's always specialists, and the specialists will say, well, this may be true for the general dentist, but we're referral driven, and so this marketing stuff doesn't really apply to us that much. And I always got to say, well, no, that's wrong. I say it nicely, politely, but I educate them on why that's exactly 100% wrong. The referral process now, how it works for specialists is general dentist says, hey, go see so-and-so, my surgeon, my periodontist, whatever. They give them the referral card. The patient goes home. They get on Google. They do a Google search. They read the reviews. That's what happens in the referral process. So if you're a specialist now and you're not paying attention to this, I guarantee you are losing patients, probably more than you realize, to other specialists who are paying attention to this. And I'll give you a case study right now. This is an oral surgeon case study. So this is actually one of our clients who also I've gotten to be friends with over the years. He's been with us for a long time. And so I took my 17-year-old daughter to have him take her wisdom teeth out a few months ago. So this is earlier this year, right before coronavirus hit. And so we were in there, you know, she's recovering. And so he and I are off on the side of the office talking. And he said, Ian, I got to tell you, I can't believe how many new patients I get from your marketing, from the reviews and my website. He said, I get 1 to 2 patients a day, every day, who come into my office who have referral slips for other surgeons in the area, but they come to me instead because of my website and my reviews. He said, I get 1 to 2 a day. It is crazy. And he said, I can't believe how many we get from it, but man, I'm so glad this marketing is working this well. And so all these surgeons that he's getting their patients, they have no idea. They have no idea that they're losing so many patients because they're just probably not paying attention. And this guy's in the Phoenix, Arizona area. It's a huge city. There's lots of surgeons there. And so, but they just, you know, they don't know that they're losing to this guy, my client. And so if you're a specialist, this should be a wake-up call for you. If you're not paying real close attention to your online reputation, you should be. You need to have hundreds, not dozens, but hundreds of good reviews, way over a 4.5. This guy has hundreds, and he's killing it. He's doing really, really well. So this is my kind of, again, cautionary tale here to everybody on the webinar and people watching this in the future. If you're a general dentist, this matters. If you're a specialist, this matters. It just across the board, it matters. Now here's something else that's really important, and this is a concept that really ties in with the 6 pillars. This is called the lead conversion funnel. Now, at the top of this would be kind of, we're developing brand awareness, right? At the top of that, they're doing research or just kind of getting a little information. You come down the funnel, you see the website and the social media, they're browsing, they're getting more information. And typically the last thing that people do before they did make a decision is they look at reviews. And so if we look at the percentages, when you're talking about direct marketing and those types of things, typically there's a 1 to 3% response rate. So for every 100 people who see your mailer, maybe 1 to 3 of those people might reply. And that's even on the high end, that's a bit generous. Now, when you get to website and social media, those are typically between 10 and 20% of the people who come to these platforms will convert and become leads. Remember the case study we saw a little bit earlier, they were getting between 10 and 14% typically of the people coming were calling the practice. So that's right in this range. We're talking about 10 to 20%. Now compare that with the reviews. 40 to 70% of the time when people come to a review site, they're making a decision to call somebody. So it's typically the last point in the process that people look at before they make. So they usually, you know, come to your website, see your location, maybe read the doctor bio, maybe, you know, watch a video, get a little bit acquainted. Okay, that's cool. He looks pretty good. Now I'm going to check out his reviews, or I'm going to check out her reviews before I call this place. And that's normally how it flows. Now, not always, right? Sometimes people come in through Yelp and then go to Facebook and call from Facebook. You know, there's all kinds of ways people do this. But on average, if you look at the percentages, on average, this is how it flows. Website and social first, reviews, close the deal. How I have this data, so we've been a Google certified partner agency for many years. We are also a Health Grade certified partner agency for several years. And we used to be a Yelp partner agency before Yelp got really crazy with their terms and conditions. So I have inside information basically from these guys on all their conversion rates. So it's really fascinating, but I can tell you for sure, 100% sure, the referrals, the reviews are going to generate a much higher conversion rate for you than anything else. So, but it all works in tandem. If you have a crappy website, you're probably going to not even get to the review piece, right? So it all works together. You got to check all 6 of those boxes. All 6 of those pillars are important. Okay. So moving on. The fifth pillar is social media. Now, in terms of driving new patient flow, social media is really not a huge factor in driving new patient flow. It's more of a supporting cast. It's not the main character, okay? Now, it still matters. It's still important, but it's not super important. It's not like SEO and reviews in the website. Those are like the most critical things. So what I'd recommend on social media, people are spending a lot of time online right now. Maybe 1 to 3 posts a week. Just kind of keep it fun, light, informational. Just kind of keep the awareness out there, but don't put an enormous amount of time and effort into this, I would say. But do something. The sixth pillar are videos. Now, videos are super important because videos are the one thing that are really unique in the 6 pillars, because videos help all the other pillars. Videos make your website rank higher with SEO. Videos make your website convert more leads because it's a conversion factor. Videos make your social media more engaging. Videos help your PPC ads convert at a higher rate. I mean, literally across the board, videos are super, super powerful. And so we always recommend videos for our clients. Now, there's all kinds of different videos. The most important is a practice overview video. These are typically 1 to 2 minutes long. You can see a little thumbnail of one of them right here. So these are typically just, kind of walking through the practice, and it's a combination. Maybe the doctor or doctors being interviewed, and then they kind of splice that with some action shots. Like right here, we see the doctor looks like going over maybe some treatment recommendations or what he just did on this patient, for example, right? So there's kind of this action stuff combined with the doctors kind of speaking interview format. So you kind of splice those things together, 1 to 2 minutes long. That's the overview video, the most important video. This will show up on the homepage of your website and anywhere else you can post videos. Now, in addition to that, patient testimonial videos are powerful, frequently asked question videos, patient ed and safety. We'll talk about all these in just a sec here. So patient education videos. Let's say you use Nobel BioCare for All-in-4 for your full arch, and you're doing the All-in-4 treatment concept, or maybe you're doing trefoil or whatever. But let's just say we're doing All-in-4 here. So if patients are researching this, this is a $20,000 to $25,000 to $28,000 per arch type procedure. So this is like buying a car. Patients are absolutely going to do research when they're doing implants, or especially full arch. And so they'll read the text, they'll watch the videos, and so it's really important that you have educational videos in addition to the text on these implant pages, or any of your service pages that you really want to focus on, whether it's ortho or cosmetic or sleep or whatever. But for this example, I'm just talking about implants. Same thing applies though. So we want to have some nice videos, patient education videos, along with some nice graphics and content. Likewise, if you are marketing for higher end, higher ticket item, high dollar procedures, like a full arch implant case, you must have before and after patient testimonial videos. These are just critical because what they do is they show patients, they kind of help take the fear out of it. They show them, hey, this is going to be okay, right? And when patients who are edentulous or have real serious issues with their teeth, they can watch a testimonial video like this, or several ideally. They can get a much better comforting feeling about your practice, right? So patient testimonial videos are super important when you're going for higher ticket items like implants and ortho and sleep and these kinds of things. Highly, highly recommend testimonial videos on your homepage and on your testimonial page. I know we talked about safety videos as well a little bit, so I'll just kind of briefly talk about this again. But again, create the videos for safety, put them on your website primarily, put them on your social, keep them fun and positive and short. But again, focus on what are you doing to keep them safe. You want to have probably like a master main video about everything. Then you might want to create some individual videos that are more topical that you can splice around on your social media and your website. Now I want to kind of tie all this up here. We're almost to the end. I'm going to show you an online marketing case study here. This is kind of a comprehensive, using all 6 pillars. This is an oral surgeon, and I want to show you kind of what we did here. So this is an oral surgeon in the Phoenix, Arizona area, and his goal was to generate more implants. And so what his starting situation is there was no online marketing budget. He was ranking on page 2 and below for the major search terms. Just the website wasn't optimized well. Only had 10 reviews across these 3 review sites. So just not a lot happening. And this is fairly indicative of many specialists around the country. They just aren't super engaged with their online stuff. So what did we do for him? Well, we created a new website. It's secure, mobile responsive, and all that. Lots of unique, engaging content. We did patient education videos and practice overview video. Obviously, we did SEO and PPC to drive traffic, and then we used online review software. He was spending a total of about $2,000 a month on this program, which may seem like a lot of money. In reality, it's not much money at all for an oral surgeon on their marketing budget, especially when it produces results like what happened with this guy. So this is the reviews piece first. So at the start, we had 10 reviews, and then after about a year, it was up to 140 reviews across these 3 sites. This is hugely impactful for his online reputation as well as the SEO performance. So this is always something that we really focus on, are the reviews along with the website. So results, what happened? Well, we got him ranking on page 1 of Google for all the primary search terms, oral surgeon, dental implants, and things he wanted to rank for. We were generating about 10 new reviews per month. And so now he's up to hundreds of reviews now. He's doing really well. He generated, and this is the data, so he and his office manager actually went through a year's worth of our call data that we sent them, and they told us, you guys got us 85 new patients for this year. And so that was really cool. And then we looked at the implant cases. His implant cases increased 118%. Now, this is not a brand new surgeon out of school. This is a surgeon who had been practicing for over 15 years, had a very mature referral base, saw lots of patients, had a busy practice. So this wasn't like this guy went from 3 implants to 6 implants. That's not what we're talking here. He went from many to many, many more. And so this is a huge increase in the amount of implant flow. So he was really thrilled. The dollars. So $2,000 a month is 24 grand a year, roughly. And so we estimate, talking with him, we generated about $270,000 in new revenue from these 85 patients. And so that's about an 11 times return on his investment. So that's really, really good in terms of cash flow. 11x on the cash flow. Now, obviously, there's some expenses and stuff like that, so the net's going to be less than that, but that's a really, really good result. So this is an example of, if you're doing all these, if you're checking all 6 of those pillars, you're checking the boxes and you're doing them well, you can really get great results. So what I want to do now is I've got a couple pages here, just some key recap, recommendations, some key takeaways here as you think about what can you be doing to really optimize your online marketing program. So the website obviously must be mobile responsive, nice new modern design, right? That's a must. Consider the 24/7 live chat. It's a great way to convert traffic into patients. Definitely implement real SEO like we talked about. And if you're not sure, if you're paying an SEO company right now, and if you're not sure, I'll put my contact information up. You can send me an email. We'll have one of our consultants analyze your SEO and let you know what we find. It's not a sales pitch. We'll just let you know. Reviews, right? You really want to focus on getting reviews on the big 4 review sites. Now, one little caveat I want to mention here with Yelp. Yelp, and this is the reason that we stopped being a Yelp partner agency with them, is Yelp came out with a policy a couple years ago, and they said, if you're using a software or any sort of automated system to drive reviews to Yelp, we're going to flag those reviews and remove them from your page, and we may even put a big nasty note across a banner across your Yelp page that this business is in non-compliance with our terms and conditions, or some kind of message that makes it look like you're doing really something nefarious here. So Yelp is very serious about pulling reviews if they determine from their algorithm. Don't ask me how they do that, but if they determine from their own determination that you're using something to drive reviews, they will remove all of them, and they may even put a message on your page. So I tell our clients, like our clients who use our review software, we don't even let them direct it to Yelp. We just remove Yelp off of that platform entirely because we don't want our clients getting in trouble and having a bunch of reviews removed. So if you happen to be using a review software that drives reviews to Yelp, I would stop. Focus on Google first, Facebook and Health Grade secondarily. If you're going to focus on Yelp, do it the old-fashioned way. Hand out postcards, ask them, individually, whatever, but don't use a software with Yelp. Number 5 here, utilize the Google PPC ads to generate that targeted traffic, right? That's a really good strategy. Videos, right? Lots of videos. We want the overview video, safety videos, testimonials, all of it, right? Lots of good quality videos on your website. Very important. Safety messaging, right? This is an important piece, right? You want to have the safety messaging proliferating all of these channels. All 6 of your pillars should have safety in there somewhere. Tracking, right? We talked about this. Tracking where the calls come from with online marketing. How many calls are you getting? How many are answered versus how many are missed? This is super important. If you're spending money on marketing, missed call is lighting money on fire. You just cannot miss phone calls if you're spending money on marketing. There are call centers that are out there that you can hire, dental call centers that are pretty inexpensive. They can handle just simply overflow calls if you miss the call. So if you're spending money on marketing, I would highly recommend putting up a little bit extra money for an overflow call center so that you don't miss those leads, because it's just a painful ROI hit if you don't do that. Again, if you're spending money on marketing, I would highly recommend that you have an internal meeting monthly where you're reviewing your results and your data and all your tracking information. And if you have a nice marketing company that you're partnering with, have a meeting with them once a month, every other month, something like that. But make marketing a focus, because marketing can really be a big lifeblood for your business if you focus on it. This is another thing, right? This is not really digital marketing. This is just kind of a bonus suggestion. This is something that I've heard practices that are doing really effectively right now, is considering these kind of touch point calls the night before an appointment. So you call the patient the night before, say, hey, this is Dr. So-and-so, or maybe it's the office manager. Hey, this is Sally from Dr. So-and-so's office. Just calling to confirm your appointment for tomorrow. We're really excited to see you tomorrow. Wanted to let you know we've taken a lot of steps to make our practice safe. Here are some things that we're doing. Boom, 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 right? Read from that list that you already created. If you leave a message, right? If you talk to them, then you can explain all that to them in person. But the nice thing about this is what I'm hearing, and I don't have data on this, but what I'm hearing is when you do this, it will increase the number of patients who actually show up. So your no-show rate is going to drop, which is great. And it's increasing case acceptance. So some of the doctors are telling us that it's like, hey, we feel like we're getting higher case acceptance levels with the patients we're calling ahead of time. Because if you think about it, it makes sense. You call them the night before, you're establishing some rapport, you're forming a connection. So when they come in the next day, there's already a little bit of familiarity. There's a little bit more trust, and so therefore they're more likely and open and receptive to your treatment plan. So this is I think something that, yes, it takes a little extra time. Yes, it's extra work, but boy, does it pay dividends. So again, when we're talking about marketing strategies to grow your practice, this is something I would definitely consider in your plan. A couple little slides here and we'll wrap it up. So if you would like to volunteer, register for some of our future webinars, you can go to our website and there's a tab for education. You click on that and you'll see this drop-down menu that says webinar schedule. So the webinar schedule will have all of our upcoming webinars. You can register for them right there on the website on this page. They're all free. We just like to educate people about how this works. And then also right below webinar schedule, you'll notice it says webinar collection. That's where we have a lot of our archived webinars from earlier in the year. So if you like what you heard tonight, you want to go check out some of our other content, we've got tons of webinars on there. They're all free. And hopefully you get some really great information that helps you make some decisions on how to improve your marketing. Almost done here. The book, this is the book that I published last year, Mastering Practice Growth. This is a really detailed book for improving your marketing, your digital marketing, your direct consumer marketing, tracking systems. It's got a lot of information in this book. Yes, you can purchase it on Amazon. That's not what I would recommend though. What I'd recommend is if you want to talk with one of our consultants, they will do a full-blown analysis of your website and online performance. They'll give you this report. They'll go through the report with you. And then if you want, they'll just send you one of our books for free. So we're not trying to sell the books. We're big on education. So we want to give you the consultation, send you the book. Our approach is very educational. We feel like if we can educate you about how this stuff works and what we do, if you want to work with us, that's fantastic. We would love to work with you. But if not, that's cool too. We just find if we educate and people can let us know if they want to work with us, that works great. And it's no sales pressure. It's not a pitch. It's just an educational process. So we find that that's been a really good approach for us. So last but not least, my contact information. So we had a lot of content that we covered here, a lot of topics that were covered tonight. And I realized that there may be questions that people have. So if you have questions that weren't addressed tonight or you want to talk about them offline, I'll leave my slide up here for just a minute so you can text me, you can send me an email, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. So again, I want to thank everybody for coming this evening. I hope you got some great information, and we look forward to seeing you on future webinars. Thanks a lot. Have a good night.